Hi there, I'm Tuomo Laine, the co-founder and CEO of Twice Commerce. And today I'm going to showcase you a bit on some of the key things that we have coming out in our new release. And today the first thing that I'm going to showcase is the flexible nature that we have when you're connecting your listings to your inventory. What I have open here is my demo store where I have set up a quite simple inventory. I have 50 unique bikes listed here, each one of them having their own models and frame sizes, colors, and so on. The key thing that in the case of this demo that you probably want to notice is that all of the bikes are categorized either with a small, medium, or large frame size. On top of that, I have 50 helmets, which I do not track unique in an individual unique way, as I'm not too concerned on which one of the helmets go out and come in, or how much an individual helmet has accrued in costs or income. So I'm just deciding to follow them with a one item code. Whereas with the bikes, I want to follow everything on a bike level, so that's why they are unique rows in my inventory. All right, so then in my online store, I want to build a listing like this. So I want to have an offering where I offer someone the ability to book 2 bikes with 2 helmets. That starts with 80 euros per day. And then I want to allow the user to select for both of the bikes which the kind of the frame size that they want to have. And after that, it's a quite basic listing in terms of the descriptions that I have. So today we're going to focus on how might I achieve this kind of a listing on where I have 2 bikes, 2 helmets, and I want to be able to say that one of the bikes is a one size and the other is another size. In order to do that, in Twice, I would go to my catalog and listings, and I have already prepared this listing so we can be efficient with our time. So here you can see that I have the same title that I had there in the online store. I have my descriptions, images, my tax rates, all of the basic stuff that I might have. In order to build that variant selection there, I've defined 2 variants. Variant number 1 being bike number 1 size, where the user can select from 3 values, and then the same for the bike 2 size. So if we quickly go back to the online store, you see that these then result into these variant selections on the listing page. Currently, if I look at the different variant combinations that I might get, which is bike number 1 being small and then bike 2 small, medium, large, and the same for all of them, my stock availability is saying not applicable because I haven't yet defined any connections to my inventory via fulfillment rules. So let's look at that. And this is really the beef of what we want to showcase today. So in simplicity, in Twice, you can say for any listing that you define that when someone purchases or books this listing, what do I need from my inventory? Let's start with defining the helmets that I need for my listing. So I'm going to go and select items. I'm going to need 2 of these, so I can go and put that into 2, search for the helmets. I'm going to click on that. And now you can see that Twice automatically created a rule that, hey, the item name needs to be helmet all sizes. As we can see soon, this can be a lot more precise if we want. It could be referring to an SKU code or anything that you have defined in your inventory, but in this case and for my inventory, this is enough. And it already tells me that there's 25 matches in the inventory. You remember that we had 50 helmets. Why it's 25 is that, well, for any listing, it needs 2 of those helmets. So essentially, I can have maximum 25 bookings at the same time with 2 helmets. So let me save that. Great. For each one of these rows, I can also add a label to make the upcoming rules a little bit more simple. So let me just put that there. Now for my listing, I need those 2 bikes. I could go and say I need 2 bikes, but in that case, I would always kind of force both of those bikes to be same kind of bikes. But I wanted to allow the user the ability to say that they want 1 bike as small and 1 bike as medium size. So let me just add first 1 bike. Now, if you remember in my inventory, I had defined for all of my bikes a attribute called type, which I've defined as bike. So when I create this stock item rule, I can just go here, I can select type, and I can select bike, and it automatically finds all of my 50 bikes. As you can see, I could have gone to, for example, item name, and there I see all of the different actual bike model names that I have. But in this case, and this listing, I don't really care what kind of a bike it is. I just want to make sure that the customer gets a bike for the sake of simplicity. So let's say that I need 1 item with the type bike. Great. And let me repeat that for the other bike. Great. And just to make things a little bit more understandable, I'm gonna go and write here bike number 1 and bike number 2. Great. So at this point, if I go and check my variants, I can see that for each one of these combinations, I have 25 stocks available. So that makes sense because for any combination, I would need one bike and then another bike. I had a total of 50 bikes. So this kind of makes sense. But you might be thinking that, hey, you haven't yet defined what's the implication when user selects a small, medium, or large bike. And you're correct. So that's why in Twice we have these variant specific rules here. So all of the stock item rows that you've listed here, you can find here below and then just define more rules that come into play if the user selects that specific variant. So in this case, if the user selects for the bike 1 the variant size small, I can just go to the bike 1 row, open it up, and say that, all right, on top of the base rule that I had defined there, the frame size needs to be small. Now I repeat it for the other ones. So if someone selects bike 1 size medium, I want bike 1 to have frame size medium. And then for large, the same. Great. Now I can repeat these steps for bike 2. So when someone selects the bike 2, so in this case, again, reminding you, goes to this selection and selects small, I'll select that then the bike 2 needs to be small. And repeating the steps for medium and large. Great. So with quite basic rules and very understandable way, I've been able to define what's the implication when someone selects something on a variant level. And it doesn't have to automatically mean that the helmet needs to change in size also. So you can go very granular with this. All right, so now we have our rules in place. And if we want to check whether they kind of are doing their job, we can always go to the variants and see the maximum availability of any combo that I might select. In order to kind of make sense of this, it might be worthwhile to go quickly back to the inventory and see how many small, medium, and large bikes I had defined in the inventory, so we can together come back here and see that the numbers match. So going into my inventory, I'm going to just first filter out the helmets or just select only the bike type products. And after that, I'm going to use the group by, so I'm going to just group them by the frame size. So I quickly get to see the different stock items listed by their frame size. So I can see here that, all right, I had 16 large bikes in my inventory, 24 medium bikes, and 10 small bikes. So 10, 24, 16 going from small, medium to large. I go back to the catalog and I go to the listing. Remember that we defined the rules here, and as I go to the variants, we can kind of always check the stock availability based on the choices that we would make. So first, let's see that if I would kind of on the highest level, it shows me how many of variant small, medium, and large bikes I have. 10, 24, and 16, just like we just checked in the inventory. If I were to select a small bike first, then this number here always tells me the availability of that combination. So small and small, if there's 10 small bikes, those can be booked 5 times until that combination can be booked 5 times until I would run out of inventory. Now, small and medium, why that ends up being then is that even though I have 24 medium bikes, I only have 10 small bikes. So that maximum of that combination is essentially the maximum of small bikes that I would have. And the same with large one. So the actual availability works here. At the end of the day, you don't have to do this kind of auditing. You don't have to kind of understand that's the big thing that the system is doing for you. But sometimes it's handy to understand kind of on the deepest level that what's the kind of at least the theoretical maximum of overlapping bookings that you could have. In this case, medium and large are combination. You can get to even 16 bookings overlapping with medium bikes, and that might be interesting for you. All right, so just a quick recap. In the inventory, you are able to track all of the items individually or in this kind of a grouped way. You can define and we will have a separate video looking into the attributes, but you can define as many attributes as you want. They're in total control by you. Then when you're building your listings, you can, in your fulfillment settings, use these attributes as ways of saying what do you need from your inventory. And you can go quite deep in defining what kind of additional rules come into play when a user selects a specific listing on the online store side of things. And all of this same stuff works also for manual orders, which we will again check on another video. I hope this makes sense to you guys. We think that it's a very dynamic way for you to build different kind of packages with the simplicity of not having to think too many things at the same time and being able to just define what you need in a as vague or as granular way as your use case defines to be reasonable. Thanks.